Welcome into Trifecta Sports Talk. It is Thursday, April 16th. It is 5:30 p.m. Alongside me, as always, is Evan Cook. Evan, how are you today on this quarantine Thursday?
I'm hanging in there. That's about it.
I think we're all just trying to do our best and hang in there. Some interesting news obviously came down this past week. And what I am shocked is every time we come to do a show, it's always like an hour the last couple of weeks, which is shocking considering there's really not a lot of stuff going on. Did you happen to see this Sunday's ESPN horse competition for the NBA?
I was over at my mom's watching for Easter, and then I said to my mom, "Hey, the NBA horse competition is on right now," and she was like, "All right, I'll put it on." She did. After about 30 seconds, I shut it off. It was so boring.
You know what? I turned it on. I watched some of it, and then I got to a point where I was like, "This is really bad." So I'm like, "Does everyone else think it's really bad?" So then I go on Twitter, and then it was it JJ Redick tweeted how awful it was, and I'm like, "Okay, I'm not the only one," and I shut it off. I was like, I felt obligated to watch it because it was the only sporting event on like in a month. But
right.
I was like, oh, no, this is really, really bad. And I didn't want any part of it. So,
yeah. We were in the middle of watching comedians in cars getting coffee, which I've never really been a fan of. I tried to get into it a couple of times, but we were watching it at my mom's, and I actually got into it. It was actually really funny.
Yeah, I actually like comedians in cars getting coffee. That is pretty good. But so if you care about the horse competition, I don't know who won. I really have no idea. But the finale's tonight, so I guess it'll have good ratings. I guess I don't really know. Talking about ratings, though, the winner books for the Sports Talk Radio in Boston came out, and it's actually quite impressive. So the winner books run from January 2nd through March 25th. So roughly 2 or 3 weeks of COVID impact. And combined, they did an 18 share between WEEI and 98.5 The Sports Hub. Sports Hub finished first with 11.9 rating. EI finished fourth with a 6.4 rating. That's pretty impressive considering that, for starters, the Patriots did not make the Super Bowl. They got bounced out early. And then you had the COVID impact in March. So that's kind of impressive.
No, it absolutely is, especially since it just feels like a lot more people are starting to go away from just sports radio in general. That also may just be me, but yeah, that's like a really high number.
Yeah, so you had Toucher and Rich, Beetle and Zoe, Felger and Maz all finished first in the book. Greg Hill surprisingly came in second in the 6 to 10 slot with a 9.2 rating, which is kind of impressive. And then the 6 to 11, Adam Jones came in second. There's also Bruins and Celtics in that window. And it is impressive that sports held in terms of the radio ratings, but I know The Athletic, for example, their readership was down, and they were saying they were getting new subscribers, but even though they're a subscription-based service and don't rely on advertising, they're taking pay cuts and things of that nature over that at The Athletic, which is sort of shocking. But on the other hand, it's really not, right? Because even our own statistics, if you look at March 11th, I believe, was the day that everything sort of shifted. I think it was the day the NBA stopped, right? And you can see year over year, we were trending positive, and then all of a sudden that trend broke. So it is impressive to see, but I'm wondering what the spring book's going to look like for the radio ratings. A lot of people are home, so the simulcast will probably get some uptick. But there's no Red Sox baseball that they're going against, so I bet the EI ratings actually do better than last year.
I hate to agree with you. I actually think you're right. Especially later on in the day, people will. There are a lot of people out there that just don't listen to baseball on the radio. I mean, if they're gonna if they're going to take in baseball content, they're just gonna watch it on TV. So yeah, I think there's a chance that Mutt's ratings are gonna go way up for the spring book.
And considering he's a degenerate gambler, there'll probably be some interesting talk on some of these leagues that have started back up. I think Belarusian soccer and the horses are still racing, and you'll get golf at some point. So maybe that'll carry the radio ratings there. Some of the news that came out yesterday was actually sort of shocking. in the U.S. soccer world, the Development Academy was announced that it was going to be shut down. And part of their explanation was COVID-19. They said this was an incredibly difficult decision to make, but the extraordinary anticipated circumstances around the COVID-19 pandemic have resulted in a financial situation that does not allow for the continuation of the Development Academy program in the future. So they wanted people to believe that COVID-19 had resulted in U.S. soccer just canceling their youth program. But, here's the kicker. A couple hours after that announcement, Evan, MLS announced that they had an elite youth program that was going to start very soon. So, how would MLS in a matter of hours come up with a brand new program without knowing, this weeks in advance? How would they know that? Does that seem plausible?
I'm going to try to spin zone this. MLS saw saw what was going on and said, let's do this. And then they let off that they have that they're going to start it, but actually have nothing planned for that going forward.
That's fair. I mean, the thing with the Development Academy is all the teams exist. They're all, independent teams. So technically you could just re-enroll them into an MLS program. But I just thought it was a little fishy to say, oh, COVID-19 has affected our financials so much that we decided to just cancel the program. I think this was in the motions for a month or more. Because realistically, for MLS to build their own program, it takes time to do that. It takes time to put the people in place. I just thought it smelled fishy.
Oh, absolutely does.
Talking about sports and potentially sports coming back, there was some pretty big news over the weekend. Dr. Anthony Fauci is really the face of the coronavirus task force in terms of an expert on the panel. I mean, this guy, the amount of media he does and the interviews he does, it's actually insane. I don't know how he does all these interviews and actually has time to work on, the data in coronavirus. But he did this interview with Peter Hamby of Snapchat. I have no idea who this is, but this has kind of made the rounds. And he asked Fauci about, sports and, the return of sports. And Dr. Anthony Fauci said, there is a way of doing that. Nobody comes into the stadium, put the players in big hotels, wherever you want to play, keep them very surveilled, have them tested every single week, and make sure they don't wind up infecting each other or their family, and just let them play the season out. So he said that. And well, I think a lot of people have sort of made these statements. I know Governor Cuomo of New York said that, he would like to see it come back too. So there's a lot of people making these types of statements, but the fact that Fauci is saying it, I think puts validity to some of these plans that, Major League Baseball has in place, the PGA Tour, and these various leagues. Because the last couple of weeks we've heard quite a bit, right, in terms of these leagues have plans to come back, but we were kind of like, oh, okay, like, what did the experts say? And the fact that Fauci came out and, said there's a way to do it, I think puts validity to the plans that Major League Baseball has, but also gives them confidence on the plans that Major League Baseball is working on, right? Because, you might have been working on a plan at Major League Baseball and thinking, oh, this might be a long shot, but, he says it, and it probably gives confidence to them, too, that this can actually happen.
Sure, but at the end of the day, who knows if it's actually going to happen? Because what you got to be doing is you need to take all of these. You need to take an entire sport, bring it into a confined area, test them, wait 2 weeks, basically wait 2 weeks, test them to see if any have coronavirus, or even probably do it before, and then you basically just try to separate everyone, and then you need to test them again in 2 weeks to basically see do they still have it. And then after that, then you have to play an entire season without that. So the cross-contamination that could happen is going to be very, very difficult. Obviously, this is going to be the only way that you're going to be able to play these sporting events. But it does bring hope. But it's going to be an incredibly difficult thing. And do you want to take away those tests from other people?
Well, I think thankfully we're getting to a point where, testing has ramped up. We are fortunate to live in a state that has one of the highest testing per capita. So the rest of the country will potentially get there. But look, if the leagues are willing to pay for the testing, that's fantastic, right? I think the flip side of this, and one that not a lot of people are considering right now, is the salary impacts on the players. Look, if they don't play any games, there's an impact, right? But one of the things we're starting to hear about is that the players in Major League Baseball have to agree essentially on a new financial structure for the remainder of the season. And that's not just Major League Baseball, that's every league. So if there is no fans in attendance, that changes the economics of the entire thing, right?
Right.
The whole game day, match day revenue is gone, and this affects every league. There's enough money from television, there's enough money from sponsors, there's enough money from apparel and merchandise sales to obviously have a sustainable product, but at the scale of the salaries, it's just not going to be sustainable, right? So there's going to have to be some type of middle ground here where the players take a significant cut. That being said, the players in Major League Baseball had a 2-month advance on their salary, and anything beyond that was essentially, frozen. If the season was canceled, they wouldn't get anything. So if it's the option between we're going to cancel the season and you get nothing, or we're going to play some type of subsidized season with no fans, I think the players are going to want to take a pay cut, right? They're going to want something rather than nothing. It's just there's going to be a lot of negotiations, and I don't know how long that'll take. So that's an unknown here, right? And certain leagues have better PAs than other leagues, but I think up until this point, I'm pretty optimistic that the MLBPA wants to play games, and the fact that they were willing to take that initial cut anyway leads me to be a little hopeful about it, but something to think about.
Sure. Just speaking like on the baseball terms, the baseball PA does have one of the better PAs out of all sports. So if your baseball, there are a lot of players that, granted, they're not making, hundreds of millions of dollars, but they're still not making nearly the amount of money that Major League Baseball players make. So only getting 2 months of salary instead of the yearly salary is going to take a pretty big hit. And even the guys that are making, say like Bryce Harper, the guy that's making like 35 million this year, missing out on $20 million, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, it is. And it's going to be different for different players. And the unknown factor as well is the MLBPA only represents Major League ball players on Major League contracts. They don't actually represent minor league players. So that's a whole unknown here. Every week that we continue to come back here and there's nothing set in stone is a week that I think minor league baseball is done for 2020, or it's going to be in some type of hyper-local, one location type of setting. But the league structure is going to be vastly different. And I think that's the case for Major League Baseball, where they might eliminate the leagues altogether, divisions altogether for this year. So there's a lot of unknowns here. I think the bottom line is you have to get some type of product to the fans this year. And it can't be these ridiculous simulations and Twitch streams. And that's all fine and dandy to sort of fill the gap. But I think we all need live sports.
Yeah, I mean, the streaming stuff isn't going to last. You need to have players on the field playing the games. You'll be able to get it from the major league at the major league level, but for the minor league level, I just don't see it happening at this point. I don't see them being having games at McCoy Stadium this year. Next year,
ever.
Or ever. Next year, I mean, I say there's a 50-50 shot, but that's me just having no, uninformed, facts behind it. But yeah, like there's a chance we may have seen the last game at McCoy Stadium, and I just wish that we knew it was the last game at McCoy Stadium before it was the last game at McCoy Stadium, and it was one hell of a game.
Talking about virtual simulations, so the Paw Sox are playing the Buffalo Bisons tonight on a virtual simulation game. And in addition, so we can check in on that game. So Nick Longy is playing in this game. And then the Portland Sea Dogs are also playing a game right now too, a virtual game. And Nick Longy is also on that game, on that team. So, I mean... It's just ridiculous. Like, I think it's a good idea to bring content, right, as a stopgap. But, I mean, I did this on Monday, so.
Yeah, I mean, if you can have it, if you're these teams, like, you can put content out there for your fans, like, might as well.
I guess. I think you're better off
it's productive on their part.
Just do, like, Skype interviews with players and things like that. And or interview former players, former coaches, like flashback, like the Paw Sox. This is a milestone season for them, right? And MLS has actually done a really good job because it's the 25th MLS season. But for the Paw Sox, is the final season of McCoy. Why don't you do something where it's on this date in history every day, right? Where you play a game, or you put some highlights from a game, or photos, or bring in former players, do interviews. I mean, it's easy, right? It's a layup, but I haven't seen anything like that out of them. So.
Yeah, I mean, the interviews with players or even former players would be a lot better. I know on these broadcasts they do have guys that are coming in to do interviews during them, because I know you said that Josh Hockney was on today's broadcast, right?
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. I mean, not to be mean about it, but who cares about any of these 2020 Paw Sox players? Like, yes, they're on the team. You should promote them, all of that. But, this is a milestone season, right? A milestone year, final year at McCoy. It's such an easy thing to do from a media, public relations perspective, to just spin it up, right? To do this date in history. I mean, you've had 50 years of history where you can pull back from. Seems easy enough to me.
So what you're saying is, they do the interview with Wade Boggs about the longest game.
Yes. Correct.
Yeah.
There's things you could do. You bring in Oil Can Boyd, who would, Tommy Harper, Fred Lynn would probably do something. All these guys. It's really not hard to do, right? That would be a better tact for me. I don't know. Like, I've been doing it, right? I've been doing all-time roster stuff. Now I've been flashing back like I'm doing their job for them.
Right.
I don't know. That's just one gripe I have. I mean, there's things you can do to spice it up a little bit and not do the same simulation that everyone's doing now. Everyone's doing simulations.
No, I mean, Major League Baseball, all the different players on all the different teams are having, are part of a league. Like, you have Eduardo Rodriguez playing 4 MLB The Show games a night.
Look, I understand it. It can be a part of your strategy. I just think there's a layup right here, and no one's capitalizing on it except us. I get, or maybe you're going to have a season, but, you should accept right now you're not going to play a game at McCoy this year. So let's drum it up. Let's do, I mean, you have 50 years, right? You can do, on your website, you can flash back to the most memorable game of the last 50 years. Every day.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
just post a box score. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's all you have to. You're right. That's all you have to do. And you even can say the last 5 years. Go back to just this ownership.
But I mean, I wouldn't do that. Not to say anything about this ownership. I love them, sure. But let's go back to the Mondor days, right? When the thing was thriving. Last 5 years, every year you have an attendance decline. So
you're thinking back to the days where they were having 300,000 people coming.
Yeah, exactly. Let's flash back. Let's flash back to Roger Clemens playing, Wade Boggs, Mo Vaughn. I mean, rehabs of Ortiz, Manny Ramirez, Josh Beckett, Pedroia, Mookie Betts, Rafael Devers' AAA debut, Michael Chavis' AAA debut. Like, you could just go back, Jacoby Ellsbury. Like, there's just so much stuff that happened over the years where it's like, this is the time where you can really unlock that chest, and it's your final season, so you can do as much content as you want about it. Because after this year, that Paw Sox channel's dead.
Yeah.
So I'm being a little critical.
I'm not going to argue about that. Like,
I'm being a little critical, but I'm also like, let's support this final season properly. I know it's final year. You don't have to call it a season because there's not going to be a season, but I don't know.
But yeah, I mean, just as you were naming off all those players, I was just thinking about there was a time period where you would have a moderately popular guy from Boston on a rehab, and it would sell at McCoy. You don't have that anymore.
Yeah, I mean, you see a bump, right? You see a bump, but when's the last prominent rehab? Oh, you had Bogarts last year, Pedroia. Yeah, no, you're right, Evan. I remember there was games where you'd have Ortiz come in, it'd sell out the place.
Right.
On a rehab.
It absolutely would. I remember when he was. What was that?
Yeah, Dustin F. and Pedroia there last year, and maybe 10 extra fans came.
Yeah. No, there was I think when Ortiz was coming back from the wrist injury, I think around 2009 or 2010. I think it was 2009. I remember he had 4 games at McCoy, and he sold out McCoy all 4 games.
Yeah, that was also David Ortiz. But,
oh, yeah.
All right, we'll move on from this. I love those Paw Sox guys, but I should be doing a better job than you promoting the team. Just saying. So one of the news that came out today, the PGA Tour released their new schedule. This is just some of the dates, some of the key dates. So this is the first league or major sport in the United States to put out a concrete schedule. This is tentative, obviously. They said it's going to go case by case, tournament by tournament as they deal with local officials. But this is the first real schedule that we've seen from any United States-based team or league. So they were going to start with the Charles Schwab Challenge on June 11th. That would start or restart the 2020 PGA Tour calendar. Some of the key dates here for our area: the Travelers Championship in Connecticut, June 25th to 28th. The Northern Trust, August 20th to the 23rd. That is TPC Boston. And then the Tour Championship, September 4th to the 7th. And then U.S. Open, September 17th to the 20th. And then the Masters, November 12th to the 15th. And the calendar does go into December, but the fact that there's going to be a major tournament in November, you're going to have Augusta National in the fall. That's incredible. I mean, I'm just salivating thinking about that one.
I don't think you're going to be seeing fans at games until essentially there's a vaccine. But just in general, being able to sit at home and watch some of these games, like even without fans, it's going to be great in the fall.
I mean, golf to begin with, like when you have an electric crowd, it can, as a viewer at home, get you into it, but you don't need it in golf. I mean, golf is the perfect game for self-quarantining. I mean, everyone on the field is going to be self-quarantining. There's going to be no fans. They're potentially going to allow golf carts as well to remove the caddy aspect, which is also a huge deal because they're going to expand the field of participants for some of these tournaments to be more inclusive of players who wouldn't have a chance normally. I hope I get to see all these get played, but I could see them wiping out half of this based on local and state officials. But this feels very plausible to me. I feel like this could happen, which excites me. I know we're about 2 months out of the first one here, but getting a little excited to see a date set. Not in stone, but at least set. Right? Don't have anything else set. Right? Unless you want to watch the Horse Challenge on, Walmart Wi-Fi tonight on ESPN. I mean, this is the first really thing we have set, so.
No, it is. And it just having something that you can actually look forward to regarding sports is definitely a positive.
Yeah, and I think one thing that isn't positive this week is MLS. Major League Soccer put out a statement yesterday, and you can see the statement on your screen here, but, essentially they said they don't have a date, right? They don't have any idea when they're going to start playing. They had hoped to be back up in mid-May, but they realized, that's not realistic. And you had Bruce Arena, the head coach of the New England Revolution, yesterday say his guys will need 30 days minimum just to get back up and running. So MLS essentially, on April 14th, threw their original plan out the window, and they didn't really provide fans with any real plan, which to me was like, oh boy, like they're not saying, all right, now we're thinking June. There's nothing really out there. There's some stuff they have put out like on the down low that's been leaked out, but officially this statement right here makes me think, oh boy, they really don't know. You want to at least put out a public persona of a plan. This statement to me says they don't have a plan.
Yeah, I know. When I read that, I'm like, oh God. Even with baseball, they wouldn't even kind of admit to that. They would basically kind of just allude to that. We're hopefully to play at one point this season. But yeah, it's definitely not good news. Like even with baseball, they're coming up with like weird, possible scenarios where they're playing at, like there was one scenario where they're possibly be playing in Japan. Like MLS is not doing anything like that, like trying to think outside the box. Granted, yes, there's not nearly as much money in MLS as there is in Major League Baseball, but I think you guys get my point.
Yeah, and that's why I included the television revenue part of this. This is a huge portion of why I think there's a holdup with MLS where they can't say we're going to play without fans. I think they have a scenario where they play without fans and they do it. The economics change any sport when you remove the fan aspect of it. But in MLS, it's a huge, huge impact. If you look at the television revenue here, they are the least, in terms of United States television revenue, the least profitable of any of the major sports. This is yearly revenue. See, the NFL blows everyone out of the water. Then you have MLB, NBA, NHL, and then MLS, $90 million a year from their national broadcast partners. That is not a lot of money. That doesn't support a lot of things. So that means MLS is ultra reliant on that match day revenue to make up the difference. And I think that's a huge factor of them is, can they be sustained even if they drastically change the salary structure for these players and do some things to defer payments and things of that nature? It's harder for MLS to play without fans than it is for Major League Baseball. That's just the reality of the situation. Even if you drastically change the salaries of players, you're going to have to do a lot more cutting in MLS. And I also wanted to throw in the English Premier League, the EPL. NBC Sports pays them $166 million per year for the United States broadcast rights. MLS gets paid $90 million for their broadcast rights. That is embarrassing. MLS is 25 years old, and it's getting less television revenue in the United States than the English Premier League.
That's pathetic.
So, look, their TV deal's up in 2022, so they're going to surpass that. I expect them to probably be roughly where the NHL is. The NHL is going to get another bump, too. The NHL will probably double, for being honest. But, yeah, $90 million for MLS annually is nothing. So, that's not going to be enough to cover the gap for them, and they're going to have to get ultra creative. But I think it's just a reality of the situation for them where, how does this affect their TV negotiations too, right? How does this affect the NHL as well? These are two leagues that have their rights deals coming up the next couple of years, and what does this year do to them? It could really set them back. And MLS, they got to a point finally where you didn't worry about their viability as a league. And now you're like, oh, wow. Like, I even with the NHL, I think you should worry about them. And the NBA too. Actually, the NBA, they got killed in China because of the thing that happened a couple months ago. And now this happens to them. The NBA salary cap for next year is going to fall off the face of, or like that thing is going to plummet.
Yeah, if you're a free agent after this season in most sports, you're not happy right now. You're just hoping at this point that you come, say, 2021, you can actually have fans back in the stands and actually play these games. Just because if you're losing that much money off of just TV revenue, TV and game day revenue, the money is not going to be there for you to actually get paid.
We're talking about billions and billions and billions of dollars shopping off the face of the earth for sports. And it's like that in every industry for the most part. But, sports ultra so, because, they're one of these industries that had to basically hit the brakes, complete stop. There's no, yes, they have merchandise sale and other things that are flowing through, but you think about sponsors and things like of that nature, those are pulling out, right? As people try to save money on their marketing spends.
Sure.
Wanted to move on here and talk about the Red Sox standouts that got away. So this is sort of an interesting list, and we went through it quite a bit. I wrote an article on TrifectaNetworkSports.com along these lines as well. But over the years, there's been a lot of players that have performed well in Boston and went to play for other teams. So I wanted us to look at players that were drafted by the Red Sox or signed by the Red Sox, but they ended up really never playing for the Red Sox and went on to have really good careers with other teams. So this would eliminate, Babe Ruth or Trey Speaker or, Wade Boggs. Not Jacoby Ellsbury. He had a really bad career actually after Boston. But so this is players that, Boston either signed or drafted, and they might have played a couple games for Boston, but, really they flourished post-Boston. So number one for me was Jeff Bagwell. Bagwell is a Hall of Fame player. Houston Astro, he's a Houston Astro legend, right? I mean, that's who he is. We both picked him as our number one. Anthony Rizzo for me was my second pick. Rizzo is like a 280 career hitter. I think there was a time there where we thought, all right, this guy's going to be a 300 hitter for the Cubs, but kind of fell down a little bit. But he's a World Series champion. David Eckstein, that's a player that absolutely got away from the Red Sox. They basically waived him. They give up on him. And he ended up winning 2 World Series titles. I believe he had a World Series MVP. Really good defensively, solid hitter as well. Josh Reddick was another player. I love watching Reddick play. And he's a World Series champion. He won it with the Houston Astros. Asterisk, I guess he won it with the Astros. Then David Murphy was another one. Great career with the Texas Rangers and the New York Mets, I think. So that's my 5. Bagwell is obviously the albatross here, right? He's the guy on this list. The Red Sox did trade him, so they didn't give him up for nothing. But you gave up a Hall of Fame player for really nothing.
Yeah. When I was coming up with this list, I should also point out when I was coming up with this list, I read it. I misread it. I was thinking it was Paw Sox standouts that got away. So it's like the Paw Sox players that played well for the Paw Sox, and then never end up really playing for Boston. Because in my head, if you want to do that, you could even go with Kurt Schilling, who was originally brought into Major League Baseball through the Red Sox, went out, had his prime years with the Phillies, and then eventually came back to Boston in the back half of his career.
And then won 2 World Series with Boston.
He did, but
yeah, he was decent with Boston too.
Yeah. But yeah, so that was the mindset that I was going with. So obviously you got to go with Jeff Bagwell. The other one was Brandon Moss. So he played well for the Paw Sox. Ended up really wasn't a starter, but he was a pretty good bat off the bench, and he was able to hit the long ball. So that power bat that you need off the bench, which there really isn't a ton of in Major League Baseball, that's what he was. So that was a great guy that would have been perfect for the Red Sox, especially in the early parts of the 2000s. Because face it, outside of 2013, the early part of the 2000s just absolutely stunk for the Red Sox. Ty Buttrey, I know he's in Major League Baseball and he's still kind of young right now, but right now the Red Sox bullpen just looks like absolute poop, to put it nicely. Ty Buttrey is a guy that I still think he would be able to have that late inning guy that's able to get punch outs and be able to basically just bridge that gap to the end of the game. You lost out on him. You traded him for him and William. No, it wasn't Cuevas. Who was it?
Yes, it was William Cuevas.
No, Cuevas.
Ian Kinsler.
It was for Ian Kinsler.
Oh, no. Hold on. I know what you're saying. Yeah. Hold on. Yeah, so before we move on with Ty Buttrey, though, talking about that trade, like you think about, all right, what if Dustin Pedroia was never injured, right? We would never have needed to get Ian Kinsler, and then Buttrey would have been that back end of the rotation. He's 27 years old. Why can't I? It was William Perez.
Perez, that was it.
William Perez, and Perez ended up going to the San Francisco Giants last year.
Right. Yeah. So I still think Buttrey is going to be a really good member of the Angels bullpen going forward. Last year he had just under a 3 ERA.
Under 4. Yeah, 72 appearances.
3.98.
Yeah, just under 4, which is fine.
Yeah, I mean, if you
look
look
at
appearances. He had 72 appearances, which is a ton. But if you look at his game logs, there was like 4 games throughout the year where he just got blown up and it just blew up his ERA. Which, I mean, that happens. But right now he would be a perfect guy to have in the Red Sox bullpen, and I think that's what really screwed them. Is going to be screwing them going forward. Clay Meredith, a guy that not many people remember, he was traded in the Doug Marabelli trade with Josh Bard to get Doug Marabelli back from the Padres after they traded him for Mark Loretta a couple of months during the previous offseason.
Incompetence.
Pretty much. So Clay Meredith he didn't have the greatest career per se, but
3.62. I have it in front of me now. 3.62 ERA, 283 in a third innings pitched. That's not bad.
So the reason why I put him on this list was because what did he do with the San Diego Padres?
With the Padres, he had a 3.26 ERA in 233 games.
with
Pretty.
actually, it's a lot less the case than I thought. The point I'm trying to make is during that time period, he was a real good reliever. Especially in 2006, where he had under a what was I just had it 1.07 ERA in 45 games. Just over a half season's worth of work, but that's a pretty damn good ERA.
And let's see how good Doug Marabelli was that year. Doug Marabelli hit 193 following that trade and 161 at bats. Wow. Right. I mean, I guess what did Wakefield do? I guess.
You have a starter, and he could catch him, and Veritek couldn't, and neither could Josh. And Josh Bart had, 20 pass balls in 4 games?
Yeah, that 4.63 ERA from Tim Wakefield that year was really worth that trade. I don't know. That trade's really bad.
Mark Loretta wasn't a bad second baseman that year, but let's not talk about that. But you want to know who's a guy that could have been the second baseman instead of Mark Loretta? Freddie Sanchez. Freddie Sanchez was traded from the Red Sox to the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Yep.
It was him with Mike Gonzalez and Mike Gonzalez for Brandon Lyon, Jeff Suppan, and I'm not gonna butcher this name, and Isincio Martinez. So basically for Jeff Suppan, because in 2013 they needed the extra arm. Freddie Sanchez had a great career with the Pittsburgh Pirates. He hit .301 in 676 games with how much was it? 37 home runs and 289 RBIs. He was a damn good second baseman while he was with them. Granted,
career 297 hitter too. Career 297 hitter. That's impressive. Not as good as Pedroia, but
yeah, Pedroia's 299. But granted, that was getting right into. He would have only been here for 1 or 2 years before Pedroia got here, but there was a chance he could have been the second baseman during that period between 2003 and 2011.
I think that changes the whole dynamic, though, Evan. Right? So what happens with Dustin Pedroia in that instance? So if you kept Freddie Sanchez, obviously you traded him before you knew what Pedroia was, but Freddie Sanchez in 2007 hit 304, right? So Pedroia, what would have happened there, right? You think about it, you look back and you're all right, you lost out on a really good player, but you ended up having Dustin Pedroia as your second baseman, not because of that trade, but it cleared the way for Pedroia if you think about it.
It absolutely did, but Freddie Sanchez did have a great career, and a career for him to really be proud of. So it comes to the matter of fact is what would you have done with Dustin Pedroia? Would you have kept him at shortstop? Because he does have for second baseman, he still had a pretty good arm. So what if you had second base, Dustin Pedroia at second, shortstop, and Freddie Sanchez at second base, and you never actually signed Julio Lugo?
Yeah, that's fair. There's a lot of you got to remember the runs that Pedroia took away at second base, right? That changes the whole dynamic of the infield.
No,
I can see what you're talking about. Maybe you move Sanchez. Maybe Sanchez.
What I'm trying to make is he was a damn good second baseman, and you got rid of him because at that time you had no idea what the future would have held.
Yeah, maybe you moved Sanchez. He never won a Gold Glove, so not as good as Pedroia at second base. So where would you put Sanchez? You could play shortstop. Oh, you probably going to plug him in at third base. You played some third base. I'm just thinking Dustin Pedroia second base.
Sure. Then at that point, you maybe think maybe he would have been traded from Mike Cole.
You probably never would have had. You would never have plugged in Pedroia over Sanchez based on his stats. So that's the thing. Pedroia probably never gets a shot. But
Pedroia got his shot in 2006 in September, and that was just lost at that point. So I think he would have been a September call up during 2006, but who knows about 2007?
Yeah, it'd have been interesting. Moving on from that, we do have some sports occurring, and this is a week from today, right? A week from today, the NFL draft kicks off, all virtual. It's a little bit different because there's always been some type of virtual aspect, right, to the NFL draft, um, where some of it's been virtual, where you had prospects sitting in their living room with the camera on them, right, or their parties. So there has always been like this multiple location type thing, but there's always been a center location. So this time around, you're gonna have Roger Goodell, I believe, in his basement.
Yes.
Is in his basement, and then you're gonna have all these prospects on camera. I don't know what they're gonna use. I hope it's better technology than the NBA thing. It should be in theory, right?
Right.
The NFL makes so much money. Hopefully, they got them some type of decent internet connection with a camera. The benefit of this is that the NBA, they were using like iPhones and iPads. I hope at least they have some type of real camera here, but at least for the top players, because that could get old very quick. But I think I'll be watching this. It starts on Thursday, runs through the weekend, and
I'm definitely watching this.
yeah, I think it'll be interesting. And for the Patriots, they have a first-round pick, and they might need a quarterback. And will they trade up? So some of the things that are different from a player personnel perspective, there was no visits, obviously. So coaches were working from their offices and using technology, which changes the whole dynamic of the NFL draft. So there's less going in person, and so there's less travel involved. So there's more time to actually pick up the phone and watch tape. And I know Bill Belichick has said that they've probably looked at more players this year because of it, and he's probably watched more film than you normally would. So this is actually a benefit from a prepping perspective. It's tougher, obviously. They've been using, I think, FaceTime and things of that nature to actually get players on camera and on the phone to do their due diligence. I think this makes, if you're a smart team like the Patriots, it gives you an advantage over previous years, I think. But if you're a team that may not take it as seriously and may not see that opportunity of, hey, you can sit at a desk for 40 hours and doing more work than you were last year when you were traveling on the road. And this could be the template, right? Go forward for the NFL. There could be less travel involved with this process.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it is an entirely new way of doing the draft, because you don't have it over, FaceTime or Zoom or whatever. The perception that you can give to a team can definitely be altered than compared to when you're doing in person. For example, I'm going to say Rob Gronkowski. During his visit to the Patriots pre-draft, he fell asleep. So, it's stuff like that. Granted, in the end, kind of worked out for the Patriots, but it's stuff like that that doesn't happen. So things could change based on people's teams perception of players, because essentially when you go on these visits, it's essentially an interview.
Yep, and they're gonna, some of the things that will change post draft is the OTAs and mini camps, right? They might not have that, but I know Belichick was saying that when they get the young players in, usually it's just an instructional type first camp, right? With the rookies. So they can do most of that stuff over Zoom and digital aspects in terms of learning the playbook and different things they can do from a nutritional aspect. But we will get to a point here where they actually have to get into camp and start doing some football action. And in football, it's a lot of player-on-player contact, even when there isn't tackling, right? Even when there isn't pads, everyone's kind of close together. It's, arguably, it's the worst sport for social distancing, right?
Yeah.
So, it's going to be interesting to see what happens here with the NFL. And look, they have the money to do this, right? They have the money to do it properly, too. When you have a multi-billion-dollar annual television revenue, you can do pretty much whatever you want. And Roger Goodell's not afraid to do it, right? He was telling people that if you're critical of us going on with the draft, you're going to get punished for that. You're open about it, right? That leaks so quickly, and he doesn't care, which is the benefit, I guess. You're going to have NFL football. I don't know if you're going to have college football, but the NFL will figure a way to do this.
Yeah, I think in the end you will definitely have NFL football. I just don't think you're going to have fans.
No, I agree with that, but they don't need fans.
No, they don't. Face it, most people, they prefer to watch the games on TV rather than in person.
Yeah, for the Colts, it's business as usual because you still have the crowd noise, but...
if you're a home team, would you start just pumping in crowd noise just to try to? You would assume so, right?
Yeah, I think you'll see it in baseball too. I think the players need that. That's part of their mentality of, hey, this is the game, right? That's the difference between practice and a game, is that crowd noise. So I think you're going to see it in a lot of sports where they're going to pump in crowd noise. Some of these teams have been doing it for years, so it's really business as usual. But
No, and I know former Paw Sox manager Kevin Pulse. He used to. There was at the end of his tenure with the Paw Sox, there was a Osos Polaris night where they had like like those Venezuelan like
the band
leagues, like, and they had like the band.
Oh yeah, Pedroia was rehabbing that game. Yeah.
What?
Pedroia was rehabbing one of the games.
Was it really?
Yeah, because Pedroia, I remember Pedroia in the post-game press conference was he was saying how awesome it was because the stadium was empty. Stadium was empty, but they were making noise.
Yeah, when you're making noise, it definitely makes it more fun for the players. And I mean, face it, if you're playing baseball or whatever, football, like, you want to have fun, so it makes it more fun. Like, why not?
Yeah, maybe instead of fans, maybe you just put band noise in. Can you like zoom in? Can you do like a audio call, right, with a band that they're all in their houses all across the country and they're just playing live? I mean, that'd be technically impossible, but.
So what you're saying is, like, say during Patriots games, just like say if the Patriots have to play a game at Gillette Stadium with no fans,
John Bon Jovi.
You're just saying John Bon Jovi just start, playing, music from his like
iPhone.
I don't know, from his kitchen, like just over the Gillette Stadium loudspeakers.
Yeah, why not? I think the Patriots were probably set to take a hit anyway this year from an attendance perspective.
I
mean,
they're probably still sell out.
Yeah, probably. I mean, when you think about it, but I don't know. I think the revenue perspective for the Patriots, unless they get a new quarterback and the fans, it's like Tua. They trade up, they get Tua, and then the fans will rush out to buy the jersey. But either way, like, think about it. They don't have Tom Brady anymore. And I know he was here for 20 years, but he was a top-selling NFL jersey. So there is an impact of not having Tom Brady, from a merchandise perspective.
Sure.
And I think from a ticketing perspective, too, I think it makes the tickets less valuable, especially in the second-hand market.
Yeah, I think that's where you're going to see the biggest hit when it comes to Patriots tickets. Saying that, like, we have no idea when tickets are actually going to be available for Patriots games again.
We don't know the schedule yet, Evan.
That, too. Saying that, I think they're planning to have a business as normal schedule for this year. It's just a matter of, does it actually happen? But
if you're a team and you no, it's going to happen. If Roger Goodell puts out a schedule, it's going to happen, right? I mean, there's governors who would probably, like, the NFL would call them up and be like, oh, okay, like, you can do it. This league, they break heads, and it happens. I mean, they took Tom Brady to the court over deflated footballs, and they got to rule. They have power.
Yeah,
this is a real league. This isn't these smaller leagues like MLB, NBA, like. The NFL, in some parts of the country, they are it. Like,
True.
So much power in that league.
True.
I mean, just look at the Tom Brady. Like, literally, just look at the Deflategate thing and the things that they did. I mean, they went to court over a deflated. Like, it's crazy.
I still have a little PTSD from the Deflategate. But yeah, getting back to just general attendance, assuming if this never happened, like this season, I think you would have been able to get Patriots tickets on the secondary market a lot cheaper than what you have been in the past. I think you're looking at more affordable rates to the point where you actually may start seeing some real fans that don't have the money actually going to the games. Because face it, right now, Patriots games are more of a corporate crowd than anything. Well, it has been for the last 20 years.
Yeah, Fenway Park since 2005. Fenway, a lot of the venues in the city have. I think the Celtics have the best fan product going right now. Maybe the Bruins are there too, I think. Although I think Bruins fans, if they were to flip the switch today and say you can have a full TD Garden, I think Bruins fans, it'd probably be the playoffs, but I think there's a real distaste now for the Jacobs family. I know it's been building over the years, but I think they've had it with them.
Yeah.
Especially with the way they've handled this.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that. There's literally no arguing about that. The way they've been handling this has been borderline despicable, and they want people to pat themselves on the back for the stuff they have done, which makes it even worse.
I will say from a PR perspective, though, like the team is made. The Bruins are the best team in the market right now in terms of making their players accessible to the media on a weekly cadence. Like they're setting up Zoom calls with the coach, with the players. No other team in the market is doing this, and trust me, I know these things. Like they're the ones doing it. They're setting up Zoom calls like 3 times a week with different people for the media, it's great. So I know the Patriots are going to set up a bunch of stuff too, but it's just sort of interesting. So talking about the draft, 20 years ago today, the Patriots with pick 199 took this QB out of Michigan. This is sort of a flashback moment. I think we all know the accolades of Tom Brady. But I think I listed some of these out, and I think it's just important in terms of how good he was. Yes, the record's there. Yes, the Pro Bowls, All-Pro, 3-time MVP, 6-time Super Bowl champion, no big deal. Those are there, but I just look at those, the fourth quarter comeback and the game-winning drive statistics. So in the regular season, he had 36 fourth quarter comebacks, 45 game-winning drives. In the postseason, 9 fourth quarter comebacks, 13 game-winning drives. So 13 times he led the Patriots on a game-winning drive in the postseason. 9 fourth quarter comebacks. That is why Tom Brady's a Hall of Famer. Remove everything else, that statistic is why he is the greatest of all time.
You think back how many times we were saying with 6 minutes left, the Patriots are down by 4. How many times have you thought, hey, hopefully there's not enough time on the clock after they score? So it was for 20 years. It was more of a just making sure the defense wouldn't blow it, not the offense wouldn't blow it.
Yeah. I mean, it truly is incredible. The statistics he was able to put up, but I mean that speaks it all to me. I mean, obviously you have the 28-3 comeback that'll go down in history as being the greatest Super Bowl comeback, or really probably the greatest comeback in sports ever for anything. There's probably some other ones I'm missing out, but the magnitude of that game to come back in the biggest game of the year and to come back and win the football game. But yeah, I just think, that's why he's the greatest. It's the clutch factor. It's less to do with all the stats and the awards. And to me, that's why he's great. And I know he'll probably say Joe Montana is a better quarterback, but I mean, Brady has 6 titles instead of 4.
At the end of the day, the ring speaks all.
Yeah. At the end of the day, that's what matters. And now he's with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And, I was hearing, I think it was Zolak and Bertrand today on 95 The Sports Hub. They were talking about the all-time receivers for the Patriots of the 2010s. They were talking about Julian Edelman and Chris Hogan and Brandon LaFell. And then you're thinking then they were like, well, if you just go to Tampa Bay and you take Chris Godwin and Mike Evans and they were on the Patriots, they would have been the 2 best wide receivers the Patriots have had in the last decade. So it's just it speaks to you think about who was on the Patriots in the last 10 years at wideout, and you look at the numbers Brady put up, and it's like, on any other team, these guys aren't the best receiver the last decade. And any other team, Edelman's not going to make it. Welker's not going to make it. Chris Hogan, Danny Amendola, these guys, they're nobody. That's the crazy thing about Brady is that he was able to have these years with essentially guys that would be not effective anywhere else. Like, what did Chris Hogan do last year? Really nothing.
I think he went on IR week 3.
Yeah, now he's a free agent. Can't get a contract.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. In the last 10 years, the only true skill position player that was on the team that, you could say was, one of the greatest ever or just the greatest during that time was Rob Gronkowski. Everyone else was,
Yeah, but he's a tight end. The best wideout they've had in the last decade from talent is Antonio Brown, and he played 1 game.
Yeah.
You could say Brandon Cooks, from a talent perspective, was a really good wideout, but Brandon Cooks was mostly ineffective when he was here. He had an okay year.
He had over 1,000 yards.
Yeah, but
the way I said it from the beginning. It
wasn't impressive, though.
He's the softest 1,000-yard receiver you'll ever see.
He wasn't an impressive player. I think it really is. In the last 10 years, it's Edelman as the number 1 wideout. and then it's probably I would pick him and Dola, and then
too.
maybe Brandon LaFell, because I think Welker would have been done at that point, right? I don't think he would have fit in that time period.
2012, I think, was his last year.
Yeah, 2012, and I mean, you could throw Welker in there too. So Welker would definitely be up there. 122 catch season in 2011, 118 in 2012. So, yeah, but if you just think about it, the Brady was able to put up those numbers despite the wideouts. So, I mean, the fact that Chris Godwin and Mike Evans would be the best of the decade if you just put them on the Patriots is insane. I think if you looked at any team in the NFL and looked at their best receivers last 10 years, they're better than whatever the Patriots had from a talent perspective.
Oh, God, yeah. The Patriots haven't had a ton of talent just on the skill position players in a long time.
They find diamonds in the rough, I guess. So, moving on to the final topic. Evan, you want to walk us through this one?
Yeah, so last Friday, there was some local college basketball news. The Bryant University Bulldogs pretty much brought in what might be the best recruit ever. Bryant added former top 100 recruit Melo Eggleston. Eggleston, I'm probably butchering that name.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, he was a transfer from Arkansas State last year. He played his freshman year at Wake Forest in 2017-2018, sat out 2018-2019, then played for Arkansas State last year. In 20 games last year, he averaged 8.4 points per game and brought down 5.1 rebounds per game. So he is going to be one of those. He's going to be a forward that's basically going to replace Adam Grant as the scorer on the team. Then
but a better Adam Grant, right? Like, because 8.4 points a game, Arkansas State's a better, college basketball program than Bryant, right? Wake Forest is too.
Yeah, he only averaged like 20 minutes a game, so he will definitely be getting more minutes. I'm saying he's probably going to play 30 to 35 minutes a game. So you're probably going to see him average probably around 15, 16 points per game. Granted, they only get him for two seasons, but he still might be one of the better. He's still by far probably the best recruit the team's ever brought in. They also brought in Luke Sutherland, who's transferring in from Siena. Last year, he didn't really play a ton. It's more of just him trying to get a bigger, break. And unfortunately for the Bulldogs, they also lost Patrick Carden, who is transferring, who entered the transfer portal at the beginning of April, and he is now transferring to Columbia University of the Ivy League. He will be sitting in 2021 to play the next 2 years after that. If you don't remember Patrick Carden, he was by far probably one of the best rebounders at the D1 level.
So might have been him on any level, really. Like, he was off the charts. I'm trying to pull up his stats right now.
I think rebounds per game, he was like one of the top in the country. So he's going to definitely be missed around the glass. But between Eggleston and Sutherland, their size, they're both, I think, over 6'8", one 6'8", and one, I think the other 6'9". Their just size will definitely be able to help replace Harding. But losing Harding is a big loss for the Bulldogs.
I think it sort of speaks, though, to like what Jared Grasso has been able to do, right? The fact that you can land this top recruit. Every year under his tutelage, the Bryant Bulldogs have taken a step forward, right? Last year, they took another step forward. So I think if you're a recruit and you sort of see like, hey, this is a program that's clearly on the rise. Yes, they're not in a premium conference, but, I think they're poised to be a top team next year in the NEC. The fact that you bring in a top 100 recruit, that's huge, right? You don't usually see that in the NEC, and I know it's a former top 100 player, but, the fact that they're bringing in that kind of talent, you can't help but look at it and say, yeah, they can make a run this year, but at some point, Jared Grasso is going to be moving on, right? You don't get a coach like this for that long, unfortunately, if you're Bryant.
Yeah, and there was like some speculation that he might be up for the Iona job just because he came from Iona.
Yeah.
They ended up going with Rick Pitino. So between Grasso and Rick Pitino, I don't think that's really, a question. You're going to go with Slick Rick. But but yeah, like there's a chance like he's going to end up going on to a bigger program. He probably at a more of a powerhouse conference rather than NEC, who's one of the lower level conferences in the Division I college basketball. But yeah, like what he's been able to do over with the program since he's took over. He took over a 2-win team and then brought them to a 14-win team this past year, and has made the NEC tournament the last 2 years.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. No. Look, they're a fun team. They're a fun team to watch last year. I think they had record one of the highest attendance ever in program history too. Like they had some fans at the games too. Which
they were getting not just students. They were bringing out the local fans. Too. Yeah. So, I mean, just really for any like non like major college basketball program, like that's a big step.
Yeah. So I mean, eventually you'll lose out. I think it's like how URI, lost their coach to UConn.
Hurley.
Yeah, Hurley. So look, eventually you'll lose him. But there's work to be done, right? You wouldn't get these players to commit to you unless you were going to at least be here for the next year or two. Hopefully everything's solved by then, right? You have until really January to get through this all. And, hopefully we have March Madness next year. Obviously, Bryant was actually sort of lucky in the fact that they weren't going to be really playing in anything, right?
Yeah, in fact, they're actually Bryant was actually kicked out of the NEC tournament before all this started.
Yeah.
So, like, their season was actually done. So
the benefit of that,
there's no question marks of how this past season was going to go for Bryant.
And on the flip side, the Providence College Friars were probably the hottest team in the entire country. And, they went from, they were so hot. Providence was knocking down, top 25 teams left and right. It was crazy. This is probably the best Providence College Friars team. They were playing the best I've seen them play in years. Really?
Yeah, they were more fun than watching Don and Kenton a couple years ago. Yeah,
no, it was a fun team. And, at least for Bryant, they could say, all right, well, our season was done. But if you're the Friars, you're like, oh, man, like I'm not going to say
you don't know what could have happened.
This was probably the closest team that could have won the whole thing. Like they had a team that honestly could have won the whole thing because just the way they played and the grit that they had, and that never give up fight. That's hard to get out of any team. You see it sometimes where a team never goes away; they always battle back. The Friars had that, and that's a trait you can't teach, and it won't be there next year. Because you're always going to have that fallout. But
right, yeah. At the end of the day, we really don't know when college basketball will be back.
It'll be back. It'll be back. It'll be back next year. You are starting to see more players test positive right now. I think Von Miller of the NFL just tested positive for COVID-19. That just broke. But yeah, you'll have some different things, and I think the major sports will take the chance first. Like if the NCAA, I don't know about fall sports because I don't know what kind of risk you want to open yourself up to for student athletes that aren't getting paid. So that's sort of an unknown. The professional sports will be back this year. I think the college level, though, I wouldn't be shocked if it's until next year. Really, you're going to put these players that you don't pay at risk. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, you really actually, if you're thinking about it, if you're a college, you want to know if you're going to actually have a fall semester on campus.
Yeah, that's another question too. I think that's not just for colleges. I think that's for all level of education. I think colleges are the most adaptive in terms of going completely digital for colleges, but you then have to there's a whole thing right now in terms of tuition costs and, how can you charge someone the same amount if it's only going to be online? And yeah, there's a bunch of lawsuits right now for colleges. So there's that whole aspect of it. Yeah, there's that whole aspect of it. And are they going to want to fund teams for sports that lose money? Are they going to have the capital to do that? So
the University of Cincinnati just recently cut their men's soccer program.
Yeah, I was not happy about that. They protected their football program, which I'm willing to reckon their football program loses money and loses a lot of money. Most college football programs do not work. And
most college programs usually do lose money.
But why, if you're Cincinnati, you'd rather have a college football team? How does that make sense? It's also why does Boston College have a football team or UConn? And you just look up and down at these northeastern schools, and you're like, college football doesn't really matter in this part of the country. So
more notoriety, where people will actually see the games on TV and say, "Hey, that's a school." So
yeah, but once you rather be like the Providence College Friars, the soccer team, and make a run at a tournament and actually be really good at what you do, other than doing like, we're doing college football, but we're really not good at it. Like we lose a lot of games. Like that's what UConn does, right? They're really bad at college football. So like, but they're really good at stuff like soccer and basketball. So why don't you play to your strengths? And I don't know. I'm sure Cincinnati has a great football team. I've never watched them play a game. So
yeah, I mean, if you're a team, if you're a college like the University of Cincinnati, you're thinking that you're going to get more people to pay attention to your school through the football team than the soccer team. That's like the only thing I can think of.
Yeah, no, I think, yeah, it's probably right. I'm trying to look up, oh yeah, I got some of their money here. I'm just looking at, how football spending. I know this isn't very entertaining. So as of University of Cincinnati in 2018 they had $13.8 million on football. Which is actually about $5 million less than the average college football team. Athletics debt. Let's see their debt. Oh, wow. So here's something I did not know. They had $9.6 million of debt in 2018, which is about double the average college athletics program in their conference. And it's almost double the average football. So like, somehow, some way, University of Cincinnati really messed up their finances.
Yeah,
and they killed the soccer team. They killed the soccer team.
You're going to see a women's team go next. So
yeah, no, it's a shame though. I think we've seen a lot of bleeding in the soccer world the last couple of days, and it is a shame that these places are looking to cut there first instead of the thing that actually costs them a lot of money. Because I don't know, like. University of Cincinnati football. I don't think you need that. But
yeah.
I don't know.
I think football is the most popular sport in the United States, and that's the only thing I can think of. That's going to be the.
But they're not playing in a power conference. They're not playing in a power conference. They're playing, in a weak conference for football. The Big East got rid of football altogether because it was the right move to do because it didn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's the only mindset that I could possibly think of that they're doing, though. It's just because of the sport.
Yeah, but then UConn moved out of the Big East because they removed football, and now UConn's rushing back into the Big East.
Yeah, they're supposed to be in the Big East for basketball next year, right?
Yeah, they are, because the television revenue was awful in the ACC.
It's not the ACC.
Oh, yeah, it is.
UConn wasn't in the ACC. It's in some random conference.
You know what? Maybe you're right.
I can't think of the name of it.
You might be right. Oh, it is. It's ACC. AAC. American Athletic Conference. Yeah, AAC.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I said. Did I?
No, you said ACC, the Atlantic Coast Conference.
Whatever. I meant the AAC. The one that Syracuse is in. Syracuse is in the AAC.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I meant that, but there's too many conferences and acronyms, I think, in college sports.
There's so many conferences in college athletics.
They should consolidate that, right? Save a bunch of money and consolidate. Just like minor league baseball is going to get consolidated. Yeah, get some of these. Like, you don't need all these leagues. Like, why can't the NEC be the Big East minor league? Why can't it just be part of the Big East, but like the second tier, where you can play up, you can get promoted from Bryant if they win. The NEC can get promoted into the Big East.
And then the worst team in the Big East gets down to the...
Yeah. Why can't we do that? And you just have... All you need is this one league office instead of having all these league offices.
So what you're saying is there's a chance that, say, Central Connecticut State could be playing against, like St. John's at, Madison Square Garden.
Yeah. That'd be fun. I think it'd be great for American sports to have that to begin with. Promotion and relegation. I think it creates excitement in the last game of the year. If you're the worst team in the league, that last game of the year, like that matters. Like there's a playoff for you not to get relegated. So I would love to see promotion and relegation in the United States. It's a great part of sports in the world. It's something we're missing. And there's so much money involved here that like people don't want to see their $1 billion corporation get relegated. But the fact is, like, it makes it more fun for the fans. They're more engaged, and every game matters. You know, you can't do what the NBA does, and you can't tank for a lottery pick. That doesn't exist. You just remove the draft system if you do that, though. Like if you were to say, oh, you know, the Wayne Red Claws could be in the NBA one day if they win the league, and you know, you can't have a draft class at that point, right? So everyone would have to be a free agent, everyone would have to sign. You'd have to do what soccer does, but I would love it. I'd absolutely love it. All right, that definitely makes Sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say it definitely makes, you know, the fan engagement a lot more in depth, especially when a team stinks.
It creates, especially at the end of the season, it creates excitement even for the last place team.
Right.
So that's it here for Trifecta Sports Talk. We talked about a lot. Hopefully next week there's more stuff that comes out. I'm sure there will be. We'll probably do more draft preview. I'm thinking about it. Like I bet next week we'll probably spend like 45 minutes going through all the draft picks, and we'll pick a quarterback that we want to see, or maybe, you know, we'll give our thoughts on the draft. I'm sure we'll know a lot more about it in the coming days. Thanks for joining us. Make sure to check out TrifectaNetworkSports.com. Follow us on Facebook at Trifecta Sports. And have a great week and stay safe, everybody.